Hey everybody, welcome to the BKBK podcast where sports and the culture collide and the New York Jets reign supreme. So now listen, I'm not going with a long and witty intro like I usually do.
You're
Okay.
witty?
Yeah, I got my wits about me, you know. Listen, man, there's not going to be any hee ha ha approach. There's absolutely no need for that today, right?
No.
The Jets lost their fourth game in a row,
Yep.
so we're 0-4.
Again.
And we lost it to the lowly Denver Broncos on Thursday night by the score of 37-28. Like I said before, we're 0-4. And the question at hand is, what in the world are we going to do to stop us from spiraling down the Stair-GASE?
Oh, this guy thinks he's funny.
But
Play on words.
I had to give you a little wit in there.
You couldn't wait to say it.
Yeah, I was dying to say it. But seriously, like, how did the Jets stop this snowball effect of just terrible football?
This is two really bad Septembers in a row, and I'll make the case that this year is so much worse than last year. When we were 0-4 last year, we had a pretty decent defense. And we played well in the first game, well enough to win. And then Sam Darnold gets mono, and we got to put David Fales and Luke Falk on the field to play quarterback for us for 3 weeks. So when you're looking at 0-4 without Sam Darnold, and without C.J. Mosley, after injury last year too, and Avery Williamson, it's a totally different picture this year. We're 0-4. With Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Now that we have tons of roster issues that I'm sure we'll get into in depth throughout the entire show, but that's the most concerning thing to me is that we haven't really played that great in any game, and we've had our starting quarterback play in every single one, even though for a minute there in this last game it looked like he was gone and not coming back in. I love how Troy Aikman just gave him a broken collarbone, like immediately. He's like, "Oh yeah, I broke a collarbone. That's exactly what it looks like. He definitely broke his collarbone."
Yeah,
I was like, "Yo, hold up a second."
We all thought it was a serious injury, though. I mean, we were in the text chat and we were like, "Man, this guy, he's probably out for a minute." And obviously, we were a little bit down on that, more so because we wanted to evaluate Sam Darnold. Not that we thought that. The rest of the season we were going to be a playoff team, or at this point we can't even expect to be competitive for the rest of the season, and our schedule isn't friendly at all.
It's getting harder.
Moving forward. Oh yeah. Because this was somewhat the easier part of our schedule, the first 4 games, and we haven't been competitive in 3, and the fourth one we didn't look that good. I mean, we had a lot of things go wrong in this particular game. We had, oh my gosh. So Pierre Desir, free agent cornerback. We felt good about that, bringing him in, $6.5 million. And there was a reason why the Colts let him go. Obviously, we saw it in this game. The good was
Katy Perry. He's hot and he's cold. He's
funny.
He's yes and he's no. He's in and he's out. He gets beat and then he does a pick 6. So I mean, that was really riding a roller coaster with him.
Well, and really, even the pick 6 and the other interception, one the quarterback was trying to throw it away, and the other one it was terrible. And he looked like a quarterback that was making his first start in the NFL on those 2 plays. It's not like Desir made like an excellent play on either one of those. It was just a bad quarterback play that led to that. But he got mossed on the Jerry Jeudy touchdown, right? Which was pretty horrible. So he gave up 2 touchdowns, and then he scored 1, and then had 2 interceptions. So
I think you might be being a little unfair. Perspective-wise, I think you could totally see it the way that you're seeing it, and I get that. The interception where he tiptoed it was a great interception.
Yes,
I know it was an underthrown ball, but that's a heady, a good play, and something that was ruled out of bounds on the field and then got overturned because of the feet and the discipline with the feet. So I'll give him that one. I'll give him credit for that one. And the Jerry Jeudy one, I mean, we would not be sitting. He did get mossed. The guy came down with the ball and scored a touchdown, his first of his career. Like Brandon said before the game, we always got people breaking records and getting firsts.
Sure.
It's like wait for it. It's about to happen. But I mean, millisecond and an inch here or there, it could have been him coming down with his third interception of the game. So, I definitely don't think he played well when he wasn't picking the ball off.
Listen, I think those were 3 mistakes by the quarterback. One turned into a touchdown for Denver. One turned into, he made a catch against air, and that was listen, it was a good catch, and he tiptoed, so I'll give him credit for that. But he was getting abused during the game, right? I mean, they were like 50% on third downs, and you could tell they were picking on him the entire game. He led the team in tackles at the end of the day as well, so they were definitely picking on him. Our corners are not good. Our offensive line looked terrible. We had 6 sacks on Sam Darnold, and obviously we had our 2 tackles that were in and out of the game. So that is something to be said there. And then on defense, we had 6 personal fouls called against us, and it was undisciplined football, and we didn't win in the red zone. When we had the ball and we were driving, we couldn't score touchdowns. We had basically 1 offensive touchdown. Yeah, that was Sam Darnold.
We had 1 offensive touchdown. I think we had 3 to 4 field goals. In the red zone, terrible play calling and also terrible execution.
Sure.
And just going back to Desir, like I respect what both of you are saying about Desir's game. Like that interception that he had when he like tapped his toes on the sideline or like glided, it was a great interception. But like what Brian was saying, he was getting abused basically all day. And then what Kyle, you're saying, him picking it off and then taking it into the end zone, that only helps us out. But if you couple that with just how he has been playing all season,
right,
I'm going to frown on his play. And then honestly, for such a skinny dude, he looks a little slower than I would want my starting cornerback who's playing on the outside to be. Like Bless Austin looks a lot faster than Bashir. So I don't know. I mean, I don't like him out there, but I don't know if we have any other options really, because the offense and the defense are just playing terribly.
I think that's where if you're gonna point a finger at Joe Douglas and talk about the roster, I think corner is a highlighted point on the roster where you could say that he really didn't do enough in the offseason to solidify that position. Relying
they pass rusher too.
And O-line at the end of the day. I mean, we're ranked 28th as of the end of the 3rd game, not even the 4th game where we gave up 6 sacks. So when you're going to invest that much in the interior line, as well as in that right tackle, Mekhi Becton looks great. And, all intents and purposes, he looks like our left tackle moving forward, unless we bring in somebody that might be better and move him to right. But at the end of the day, the other 3 positions, the guards and center position, haven't helped us out at all. And those were free agency acquisitions. I mean, he signed those guys. So, he's on the hook for those guys and how they're playing.
We're getting a lot of pressure coming up the middle on us, a lot. I'm sorry, Kyle. But if you guys are watching it and you watch the replays, a lot of the pressure that we are giving up is coming from straight up the middle. The center flanked by the 2 guards, that play right there, it is not in unison whatsoever. McGovern is supposed to be a top 10 to 12 center, but he is not playing like that right now. And I don't know if it's the play of the guards that are flanking him that's bringing his play down, or if it's the opposite, or if it's just all 3 of them just aren't just playing that well. But it's not good. A lot of pressure up the middle. That's what's making Darnold kind of always flushing outside of the pocket, taking the perimeter, and getting sacked, getting hit. and making poor decisions. So, it's just not working out right now.
Look, I'm gonna be harsh right now on the roster, and I'm just gonna preface this by saying that I know all these people are human beings, and that they're men and they're good people. So
when you say they're good people, it's like, all right, you know where you're going.
Before I go in and be real judgmental about the roster, what we're seeing right now is, like we talked about a few weeks ago, you get thin at positions, and you got an XFL roster out there.
Mm.
You got guys playing positions that are they're borderline pros, and it's a little bit unnerving that we have so many on our team. And when you're starting O-line, when the people that are making your running game go or protecting your quarterback are McDermott, Alex Lewis, McGovern, Van Roten, and Agoda, or Fant, or whatever combination that is. I mean, Fant was a free agent signing. I think that he'll work out pretty well. But
so do I.
McDermott is a guy that would have been on an XFL roster probably.
McDermott is the type of guys that should be getting his paychecks written out by Dwayne Johnson.
By the Rock, yo?
Yeah, because I think he's part owner of the XFL, isn't he?
Yeah, or he should be getting reps on a practice squad or something like that. He's a practice squad player. He's not a left tackle blocking for your franchise quarterback. And there was a couple plays where he just got olayed, like straight olayed. And the same goes for like we needed a lot of roster spots to break the right way. You need Desir to break the right way. You need Bless Austin to break the right way. You need Quincy Wilson to break the right way, because that's what we relied upon with our roster. We didn't go out and get Logan Ryan. We didn't draft a first round corner to put in that spot. So this is what you have. You have a roster that is like, we played probably the second worst team in the league on Thursday night, and their roster was way better than ours.
Yeah.
So, and just getting back to the original question, because we haven't even mentioned Gase and Darnold's progression, and just his progress as a quarterback. And I can't say that this game, at least on offense, had anything to do with Gase. There was some questionable calls, play calling. I didn't see a screen run. I didn't see any creativity at the end of the day. So I think a lot of that hangs on Gase. You own the entire game, not just offense, but also defense. But let's just stick to the question as far as Darnold is concerned. And I just, there was a lot to be desired, but the offensive line and the talent level has nothing to do with him. So I can't really say that, hey, man, Gase is the problem. So Gore ran 13 times. He averaged 2.3 yards. Darnold was our top rusher at 84 yards with 6 attempts.
That's misleading because he had the long run.
It is. But, I mean, even without the long run, what was that? 40 yards? He would still been the top rusher.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, Perrine ran a couple of times, and your eyes say he looks good. He averaged 3 yards. So, you can't run effectively. You can't pass protect at the end of the day. And you have Darnold back there who's supposed to be your franchise quarterback, and he didn't throw any interceptions, which, that's a positive. Didn't throw any touchdowns, so obviously that's a negative. Couldn't move the ball in the red zone, but you can't really blame the kid. And I said early on during the game that we can't even evaluate him. Right. And this is another game where you can't really evaluate Darnold based on what's around him. And that has nothing to do with Gase at this point in time. It really doesn't.
And then he tweaks his shoulder, right, B? Like, he tweaks his shoulder, so it makes the evaluation that much harder. And we're not even sure if he's going to be playing next week.
Well, listen, what I will give you is the toughness. He came back I mean, it looked like he might have been out for the entire game. He came back, had the moxie. He probably was like, man, I was out last year with mono. Now you're going to, keep me on the sidelines with this shoulder injury. I've had enough. I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to show people that, I'm tough and I can continue to play football. So I'll give him that, definitely. But
I'd say the one thing is because they take you in the back, right? They're probably going to do like an X-ray or an MRI. Actually, not an MRI because that takes longer, but an X-ray at least. So at least we know nothing is broken. But it's really about whether something is sprained, and the degree of the sprain,
Right.
So and whether or not he can take it, like how severe it is. You know what I'm saying? So that's why he was able to come back.
Somebody tell me what kind of person takes a quarterback who just came out of the locker room, getting an X-ray, like you said,
Indeed,
and inserts him on third down. I couldn't believe when that happened. They got Flacco in there for the first 2 downs. He just got back on the sideline, and they put him in for third down, and he gets hit again immediately.
he does.
I don't get that at all. I
He probably got hit from up the middle as well.
I like Sam Darnold. I think he's a good kid, and we might not ever know what we have with him unless we draft another person and we keep him on the last year of his option and see, because we might not have a roster good enough to evaluate him for 2 years.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, well, even if it's Trevor Lawrence, you're gonna break Kerry's rule of cheap labor. You're not gonna play him while he's still on a cheap contract, while you're still evaluating Darnold. I've seen more articles this week about Darnold being the next quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers than I have about him being our quarterback.
Wow. And you know what I have seen that people are trying to suggest to Trevor Lawrence that if the Jets have the first pick, he should stay another year in school.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah. Was that Greeny? Yeah. So, yeah, and that sucks. Come on, man. Don't start that campaign. We don't need that. I think he comes out regardless because the money. It is what it is, and you don't know what college football is going to look like next year. Just like we don't know what the NFL is going to look like next year. I mean, you don't know what the NFL is going to look like for the rest of this year. We already had 2 games postponed because of COVID-19. Cam Newton has COVID-19. It's we really don't know what the rest of the season is going to look like for college, for NFL, or any of that. So if I were him, I'd just money grab, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get that bag, man. Get that bag.
You better go get that chabo. Like, you better go get that.
With all the stuff that's gone on in college football, as far as like the canceling and then restarting and the blatant disregard for the health and safety of student athletes, in my opinion, it becomes a bunch of people that want whatever it is that they want. Like if the players want to play and they say they want to play, that's fine. That's what they want. If the schools want to do the thing that's not going to spread the virus on their campus, that's what they're doing. And then when they find out that other conferences are making money and they're not, all of a sudden, all right, we're coming back now. We got games October 26th.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a little ridiculous to me.
But, listen, I think if you bring in and you draft Trevor Lawrence, number 1, I don't think he rides the pine. I think you put him up against Sam Darnold and you see who wins at the end of the day. And if Darnold wins, great. You go in, you play him, you pay him the 5th year, and you play the kid and see what ends up happening. If not, then and Trevor Lawrence wins, you trade Sam Darnold and you see what you get for him. I'm sure he'll do better on Pittsburgh than here, but he'll do better anywhere than here. I mean, we are the worst team in the NFL. Of course he'll do better, and the roster will look better, and the weapons will look better, O-line, everything, if he goes elsewhere. Even the Giants, which is pretty sad to say.
Well, you know what, B? I mean, he may not particularly look worse if we get a new coach. And basically, the original question is, what do we do? You know, because ownership has confirmed that Gase is staying put, and how does that affect Darnold? You know, with Gase staying put, and I think the remedy is we absolutely have to get rid of Gase. We absolutely have to.
But what
Now,
what do we bring in? I mean, so what? Greg Williams,
well,
and see what it is. The roster's not going to be any different. The O line's
well,
not going to be any different. I mean,
right?
so
Okay.
what, you know, what else is it? You know, so is Greg Williams, and I don't know if that's your solution, but we can't bring in a new coach from off the street because it's already COVID-19, man. I mean, so you're
I
talking
know,
about new
but
system. I don't know. I don't like Gase. I think we can all say right now we'd love to get rid of the guy, but is that the solution for Sam Darnold to bring in a new coach to have Greg Williams to be the guy? Is that going to solve the problem? Greg Williams can't even keep his own defensive house in order.
no,
So
but I know I hear you, B. But you know, you didn't let me finish because what I was gonna say, and I hear everything that you're saying. What I was going to say is because I heard this point and I love it. You know, first and foremost, I read an article saying that the Jets are already starting to reach out to agents of coaches.
okay, good.
Start reaching out. Okay. Now, what I think is at first, because the passion took me over, you know, like, and I'm not talking about today. I was talking about like in prior episodes, get rid of Gase now, get rid of Gase now. All right. Okay. Now it's like, okay, we know Gase stinks. Okay.
Sure.
We still need a coach.
Mhm.
All right. Fine. We'll keep Gase. He's an offensive minded coach. Hopefully it will not take away from Sam Darnold. Maybe he can learn one or two things to kind of help him grow somewhat, even though I doubt it. But just like how Bill Parcells was right there by his phone call before he became our coach. You know, they had him already dialed in. And remember, before he became our coach, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day, he was like, I'm not coaching them. I'm a consultant. Remember, it was that whole thing. He kept on saying that he was a consultant, and then he was officially hired because – so basically, we need to have someone that we're going to throw a lot of money at that we know is good and has the utmost potential, like in Eric Bieniemy, you know.
But he can't be that consultant, by the way, because he's already on the Chiefs.
No. I know that, but
okay.
I'm just saying, like, this is what Bill Parcells did to kind of camouflage things. But my point is, we ride the season out. If the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, we wait, but we have, you know, some type of verbal agreement, and then we throw so much money at him that he can't turn it down, and then we kind of remedy things that way. You know, so, all right, fine, Gase, you stick with us through the whole season. As soon as it's done, we're getting rid of you. And it's like, hey, we're available. And not only are we getting rid of him, I want Greg Williams gone too. I want the whole coaching staff gone. And I want whichever coach is coming in to build from his perspective. And I hope to goodness gracious that it is Eric Bieniemy or someone of that stature, you know, of that offensive know-how. You know, and I hear that his leadership ability on the Kansas City Chiefs is great as well. He just hasn't been a head coach yet, but I think this year is his year, and I really pray that he will, you know, be a Jets head coach and not, you know, fall for the Jets organization as a whole is just terrible. The
leadership,
I hope we can get better.
Leadership. That's the problem at the end of the day, because are you going to let Joe Douglas make that decision as far as the head coach is concerned? Are you going to make sure that they can collaborate and work together as opposed to bringing in another head coach where there is no relationship there and now you just have two entities, again, reporting up to Chris Johnson or whatever it is? I just – this has been the problem for the last decade plus, where we hire a coach, we hire a GM, they don't have a relationship, they don't get along, they don't have the same vision. You know, and that's what the problem is, I think, at the end of the day. They hired Gase, right? They had McCagnon, kept him on when they fired Bowles. It's just all of that is just there's no – it's not seamless. It's like bring in two people that have a good relationship, have the GM, because I think Joe Douglas – he's got a 6-year contract. The dude's not going anywhere anytime soon anyway, right? So you have him pick your next head coach. If you're not going to do that, then we're going to be right back in the same muck that we're in right now.
I 100% agree. And basically what I'm saying is I think Joe Douglas is of that right of mind to understand that hiring someone like Bieniemy is going to be extremely worthwhile for this organization. You know, unless he is thinking completely different than the BKBK podcast, you know, and where our headspace is as far as the value of someone like an Eric Bieniemy. Now, he's not the only one, but he stands out to me the most. I mean, it's the Kansas City Chiefs in that offense. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, we agree.
Even before Mahomes was there, it was still a really good offense with Smith as the quarterback. He couldn't just bring him over the top, but it was still a good offense.
Sure.
So, you know,
I like this. I like this more patient Brandon, because you were dragging Gase out the door every week up until now. So the passion getting away from you.
I know, Kyle. I was so passionate. Like if I ever saw him in person, I was going to be like, I dare you to say something about my mother. I dare you. I dare you. Yeah. I was going to bring it back to that.
I've seen this passion. I've seen this passion on the football field, and I've seen it in the broadcast booth. Now, I have to say that I pretty much agree with everything that you're saying. And Kerry is kind of chiming in with a similar thing on the chat right now. Kerry unable to be with us today, but
Kerry,
I definitely think that the Johnsons are cheap to the point where they're not going to pay a coach to go sit in his man cave. And I think that Greg Williams has been an interim head coach before. Greg Williams has also been suspended for years at a time for tactics. And I think that it was getting a little crazy in that game with the illegal hits on the quarterback. Like, whereas at first I thought it was just bad calls, but then at the end of the game, it was a combination of like I don't know why Vic Fangio is dropping this guy back up to throw the ball in the air, and we got guys that are just tune them up, you know, like for lack of a better word. But I don't think Greg Williams is the answer here. And I agree with Brandon that if there's going to be a change here, if you're going to fire Adam Gase, you're firing everybody. You're starting over from scratch, and you're not making it so that you have all these carryovers, you know, or, you know, bench coaches. You know, like I think about the Knicks a lot with this. Like the Knicks have never figured this out. And hopefully, you know, for the Knicks fans out there, which I'm not one anymore, they figure it out a little bit. But you know, when you carry people over and you don't start something with a fresh outlook and take, and I do think that if Joe Douglas is the general manager, he should pick the coach, or at least he should be telling ownership who to hire. You know, if they're part of it, but
and make sure that you're a part of every single interview and letting your influence be known as a GM, because he's got a lot of history. Just because it's his first 2 years as a GM, but he's been around the Baltimore organization where he's seen good faculty and good coaching, as well as Philly. You know, so he's been around great people. So he should know. And should go into those meetings confidently.
I'm confident that he has a list of 5 people that he'd call right away.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Eric Bieniemy would be on that list. I think Lincoln Riley at University of Oklahoma would be on that list, especially given
he's not going to come, but he should be on the list. But he's not going anywhere, I don't think.
He's young, and we all know that even being unsuccessful in the NFL is not going to stop you from getting another really high-paying college job. I think that the nightmare scenario here, and I hate to throw nightmare scenarios. I hate to make the nightmare more of a nightmare, but we're doing this podcast a year from now, and Lane Kiffin is the head coach of the Jets.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
I don't want Lane Kiffin or his
Come
dad.
on, Kyle. Why'd you even say that out loud?
So
I don't want Lane Kiffin or his dad coaching anywhere near First Jets. What is it? Drive or First Jets Avenue? I think it's First Jets Drive or One Jets Drive. I don't want any of that.
So
Oh yeah. Well, whatever it is,
yeah.
they should bring it back to Hofstra anyway. Whatever.
Well, so I would say this, Kyle. You're making some parallels to the Knicks organization as well as the Jets organization, and the way that Tom Thibodeau wasn't able to pick all of his assistant coaches. Right? Let's collaborate on the assistant coaches that you're going to have on your bench. I don't think that leads to what you would want out of your head coach. He should be able to pick all the guys. And when you're talking about Matt Rule, when we were looking at him, right? And this is the same leadership discussion where, no, we're going to pick Greg Williams. He's your defensive coordinator. Well, wait a minute. I can't pick my own defensive coordinator. I can't pick my guy. You're going to make a forced marriage. And how's that going to work out? And we said it early on. It's like Gase and Williams, it's either going to be very good or it's going to be very bad. And so far, you can't argue with the fact that it's been very, very bad. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of collaboration. It seems like there's two separate teams at the end of the day, offensive and defensive. And again, leadership goes back to top of the house. Do they know what they're doing? And it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing at this point in time. So it's tough really to watch at the end of the day. I think you definitely clean house. I know that's the question right now. I don't think that you keep any other assistant coaches, or at the end of the day, you know what? They're under contract. You let the new head coach decide whether or not some of these folks stay. But you don't force any of them on them, right? If they're under contract and you feel like, hey, your O-line coach is good or D-back coach is good or whatever the case, let the head coach decide that in collaboration with the general manager. And that's it. But he gets the last say, whoever is the head coach.
100% agree with you, B. That's what you do, or else why give him the title of head coach?
Right.
So let the head coach be the head coach, and you put your money where your mouth is. You give him that control of the team. You give the general manager the control of the players, and then you make sure that you hire as ownership the right general manager with the right headspace and personality and plan to go with the head coach that the general manager should have hired, as far as being able to work together and them having just a great plan to be able to forge ahead together as a unit. Because this is a team sport. So we can't just have all of this individualism at the top. You still have to come together as a team, So even if you're playing on the field or if you're in the front office, if you're coaching staff, it's the same concept. It's the same theory. So, just because you're above the line doesn't mean that you don't have to respect those principles. They need to do that as well. And unfortunately, I feel like it's more fractured up top than it is, down below. But, it's like a Reaganomics or something, trickle down theory that's happening. And it's terrible. And it's been happening for way, way too long. And we really need to change that up. And I hope Joe Douglas is given that authority to be able to make that happen, because I kind of want to see it. I want to see it,
So go ahead, Kyle.
I want to go back to what we were talking about with the rosters too, and something that you were saying, Brian, about like the opportunity for us to maybe not win any games with these teams coming up. And I think the thing with COVID is that all of these teams that we're playing could not be the teams that we expect them to be when we actually play them. Came out today that Cam Newton tested positive, so that game is going to be postponed until Monday or Tuesday. I forget who the Patriots are playing.
Killer.
Who are they playing?
No, you said Cam, so I said killer.
Yeah. So with Cam Newton, whenever the Patriots do play that game, he won't be the starting quarterback. So all of a sudden you have not only the possibility for injuries in a like a non-acclimated physical sense, but you also have the possibility for key players to be out if you have a COVID outbreak.
Yeah, but they'll still beat us. I don't care who they're missing at the end of the day. They could quarterback, star running back, star, pass rusher or whatever else. Our roster is that depleted and lacking talent that I think they'll beat us anyway. But what I will say this, going back to the coaching piece, Lincoln Riley, let's say, you have a Trevor Lawrence, Lincoln Riley marriage. Does that bring him out of college? I mean, you have Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray as that combination. Does that attract somebody like Lincoln Riley? I don't know. Are you going to be attracted to Sam Darnold? Or are you going to be attracted to Trevor Lawrence, who you just saw win the national championship or do this or whatever it is? I think that's definitely more attractive to somebody like Lincoln Riley than it would be if you're watching Sam Darnold struggle over the last 3 years.
Well, I think Lincoln Riley is going to be the coach of the New York Jets before Trevor Lawrence gets drafted either way.
Well, you have the number one pick, right? I mean, just like Arizona did. So they had the option and the choice at that point. That, you could draft whoever you want. We're going to know before Lincoln Riley becomes a head coach, you're going to know that whether or not we have the number one pick and whether or not we can take Trevor Lawrence at that point.
Yep. We'll know by the end of December.
Lincoln Riley's had a string of quarterbacks in Oklahoma with Mayfield, Murray, and Jalen Hurts that he's not going to get 3 quarterbacks that are that good back to back to back ever again. That's like lightning in a bottle. And if you look at the guy that's starting for them right now, it's a little bit more down to earth with the quarterback play at Oklahoma. And I think he's young, so he might get better, and that system is really good for a quarterback that understands it and has the skill set. But I think that he's more ripe to come into the NFL now than he was 2 years ago or something like that. And like I said before, if Nick Saban is a perfect example. You could go into the NFL and you can completely have no success at all and go back and be welcomed with open arms back in college football.
But why if you're Lincoln Riley, though, just playing devil's advocate, why do that? He just signed a new contract. I mean, dude has a 6-year, $45 million contract. Well, if I'm him, I'm like, why do I want to take on this dumpster fire? Why? I can stay right here, develop quarterbacks. I'm going to end up, maybe a top 4 team every single year. Obviously, people want to play for me. Recruiting is not a problem, and I don't have the headaches. I don't have to win the national championship every single year. I don't. I already got my money. It's locked in. Guaranteed $45 million. They're not going to fire me. Why do I want to take on a dumpster fire that is the New York Jets? I'm not doing it if I'm him.
Well,
but Bieniemy, I can definitely see, and I think we're all on the same page with that. Hopefully, the same things in development that we saw at Patrick Mahomes and the offense looking the way it does.
B,
yeah.
Let me ask you a question, B.
Yeah.
If Jim Harbaugh said, I'm available.
No.
And I
No, I'm not doing it, bro. I'm not doing it.
Why not?
Because he doesn't know what he wants to be. He doesn't know what he wants to be, and it's not like the guy won at Michigan at the end of the day, right? So he's leaving a losing situation where he couldn't beat Ohio State where he's at, and could he be a good coach potentially? But for how long? How long? When is he going to get burned out and to a point where he's like, I want to walk away from it? I think he's a coach for 3 years, 4 years. I don't think he's a coach for 10. I want somebody that's going to be in there and locked and loaded as the New York Jets head coach for a long time. The turnstile is killing me right now. I want consistency at head coach, and he's not going to be that guy.
He might be. I mean, he's got the same blood his brother has. He developed Andrew Luck. He did a great job at Stanford. He brought the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl with Kaepernick. Kaepernick, ended up being a pretty good quarterback, whereas before no one was really thinking about him until he started developing under Harbaugh, and he ended up taking Alex Smith's job, So, he does some good stuff. Listen, it's tough to beat Ohio State in that Big Ten, man. You know, I mean, it's tough. They're one of the best just organizations in the entire country. They're like your Alabamas. They're like your LSUs. It's just tough, you know. So, but he also puts out players that get drafted every year out of Michigan as well. So there are players coming out of there.
I mean, that happens regardless, B. I mean, players are going to be drafted out of that program regardless of who the head coach is. And to me, do you see? I can see 3 years into it, Douglas and Harbaugh having, you know, an issue. I don't know what that issue would be, but I can see Harbaugh trying to undercut him at some point, saying, you know what, he's not giving me the guys that I want. And that's,
I hear
you know, what I mean?
I hear you. I mean, because personalities have, you know,
sure.
You have to meld that way as well.
Sure.
I mean, and you know, Douglas is going to have to hire if the ownership gives him the power to do so, hire someone that's going to work together well with him. And I know Harbaugh has a very, very strong personality. Actually, Douglas would probably work better with his brother, the other Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, and he already has worked with him. You know what I'm saying?
I can see them getting. I can see them coming to blows too, on the sideline. But you know what?
He's got history working with him.
No, I get it. But you know what? I want a young.
I wanted 2 years ago, really bad.
I want a young Mike Tomlin. That's what I'm looking for, right? That's who I'm looking for at the end of the day. And I think Bieniemy could be that. But you know, that's who I'm looking for at the end of the day. Somebody who's young, we could bring in, who's going to be here for a decade plus, who can put a program together. We can't put a program together. We don't know who we are because every 3 years we're changing it.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that the college football grind is much worse than the pro. So I think that they're going back to what you were saying about Lincoln Riley and why would he want to come. Recruiting is hard. College football is a 365-day-a-year job, and pro football is not. There's a long period of time where you have time off, and there is a lot of people working above you to do the things that a head college football coach has to do as far as recruiting and roster building. You know, when you're Nick Saban, you're the general manager and the head coach at the same time. So that I want to make that point because I definitely think that's much more of a grind, and that's one reason. The other thing here too is that when you talk about Mike Tomlin and you talk about Bill Cowher and all those Steeler coaches actually not all those Steeler coaches because there hasn't been that many.
Right.
But the one thing that I see with that is that they let the front office do what the front office does, and they coach football. And they might have some input, but they kind of walked into a place in which that is taken care of for them. I think it's the same thing in the Ravens. Ozzie Newsome, he took care of the roster for John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh just coached. And nobody's taking care of the roster for Adam Gase in year one or year two here. Nobody took care of the bowl.
Coaching.
What's that?
No one's taking care of the roster for Adam Gase, you know, in the beginning, and also Adam Gase isn't coaching. So that's why you have such a separation.
Right, but I'm talking about one thing and I'm not talking about the other right now. I'm just talking about the roster right now. The problem that we face right now is that even if Adam Gase coaches well, the roster is still terrible. And it's going to remain terrible until it's not anymore. Or until we get some of these injured players back. But even with the injured players there, without those key players we needed to break in the right way, it's still a bad roster. So we can make as many changes as we want until the roster is good. Nobody's going to win with this roster unless they overachieve. And that I don't think that you hire a coach to overachieve. You hire a coach to do what they do with being provided with the right pieces to do it with. If they do overachieve, that's great if they have a good roster. But you can't expect to give somebody, a crappy car and go win the Indianapolis 500.
That's true. I mean, I hear you. But I think that being a good coach will allow you to extend things a little bit farther than if you were not with a roster that's not so good. But when you couple being a terrible coach with terrible players, then there's just no way out of it. I mean, like I think if we had let's say if we had Andy Reid here on the Jets, I don't think that we'd be 0-4, even with this terrible roster. I think we might be 2-2.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I was listening to Keyshawn talking the other day, and he was talking between we had a terrible record one year, and then Bill Parcells came in. The roster wasn't much different, and then we ended up, I think, in the playoffs.
It was like 7-9.
7-9.
Yeah, 7-9, and then the third year after that, it was like the AFC Championship.
Right.
When Bill Parcells didn't have good rosters, he was 500.
It's
better than 0-4.
Yeah, but I mean,
sure.
we were one game below 500 last year.
But we were listen. That 6-2 was a mirage. Let's call it that. The strength of schedule has a lot to do in the NFL with what that looks like. And we said it early on in the season. We had a tough schedule, and what happened? Sam Darnold had mono. We looked terrible. The last portion of the season, that 6-2 was. I mean, it was a fugazi 6-2. We talked about that. We had
a better roster last year than we do this year.
Oh, yeah. But we can't live into that 6-2 like, oh my God, we're 7-9. We were 6-2 against garbage teams. So really, that 7-9. I mean, you gotta somewhat take that with a grain of salt. And now what we're seeing is a tough schedule and a terrible roster and a terrible coach turning into 0-4, and the prospects of maybe going 1-15 or 0-16. That's the schedule we have. Our strength of schedule is 638, right? And the luck of the Jets would be that we have another team having the same exact. This is the luck, right? And it would be the Giants. So let's call it that. Yeah. That we would be 1-15, and because of strength of schedule, the Giants have a weaker schedule, and they would end up with the number 1 pick and Trevor Lawrence. That's the luck.
The Giants aren't going to pick Trevor Lawrence.
No. But new GM means because Gettleman's out of there. I mean, if they go 1-15, he is not going to be there. So then who's making that pick? You're a new GM. You're coming in, and you're like, you know what? Daniel Jones is okay, but I
agree with Kyle. I don't think that they're going to pick, with the first pick a quarterback. But here, just to add on to what you were saying, they would probably end up trading with New England, and then New England would have.
That would be funny.
You know what? You would just look inside of the GM room, on draft day. You just see papers flying in the air and stuff. When they cut back to the Jets office and stuff, people just just flipping out and everything, like it figures, And then you would just see Bill Belichick like this.
Can't even see his eyes. You don't even know if he's happy, but deep down in his heart, he's so happy, right? And he might be wearing a Jets hat too, just to rub it in.
I feel like
24 hours that he spent as a Jets coach.
I feel like the failure of if it is that it goes that way, a number 3 pick at quarterback not working out as a franchise quarterback.
It's terrible.
The pick of Jamal Adams when you could have picked Pat Mahomes. The Quentin Williams pick, where you could have had the pass rusher.
Sure.
I haven't given up on Q yet.
All those things. I haven't given up on Q, except that we may have won that game if he hadn't face mask. I mean, that we haven't brought that up yet.
That's
how many
sack? He had a sack too, but that got
taken. It was the end of the drive. We had the lead.
Yeah.
That was a tough play, though. The
Yeah.
guy, the quarterback dipped his head. And so it was a tough play. He came at him. The guy dipped his head, and then all of a sudden he grabbed the face mask and the
He
helmet.
was
And
very high.
Yeah.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
high.
you know, like I can't give these guys passes on every time they late hit the quarterback
That
or
was
they face mask the quarterback or whatever. You know, it's like, you know, we all played football. You know, we didn't face mask somebody every time we tackled them. And
no.
no, and it's frustrating. I can imagine how frustrating it is for Greg Williams. However, you
He's
know,
frustrating me too, though.
it's frustrating us too. Yes.
You know, like none of these linebackers, and Brian called it out before, they're not filling the holes. That means what? They don't know their assignments. You know, you know, it's, and I don't like the plays that he's calling as far as, you know, his blitz scheme. We're not making plays at all. I mean, okay, fine, the talent is bad, but we're also in the NFL, and I just feel like it's just really bad. Like they're being poorly coached. I remember in our last broadcast, it was the first two games because last week we didn't do a broadcast. We just did, you know, basically our rants, and then we uploaded it. But our last broadcast, it was the first two games. The Jets led the NFL in missed tackles. They had 40 missed tackles, and the closest, the second to last, Kansas City Chiefs with 26. You know, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I can only imagine how many missed tackles we have now after 4 games.
Well, didn't we have 120 yards in penalties?
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was 118 yards in penalties, I think.
Undisciplined. And both of those speaks to how undisciplined. When you have a lot of missed tackles, and remember game 1 and game 2, I just kept on commenting on how many people just kept leaving their feet instead of breaking down.
There's been a lot of missed tackles in all the games, though. Not as many, but there's been, like, tackling is not at a premium right now.
No, they need to do that breakdown drill that they were doing. You guys see that in the Raiders locker room with the coach
Gruden.
Yeah, they got fined. Like, they got fined after that too for having too many people in the locker room. That backfired. Yeah, they were doing Ball and Pride hit Sting.
Yeah, Ball and Pride hit Sting. I kind of I was watching it, you know, and I was saying to myself, breakdown, you know, ha, 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 you know, but that was getting me fired up. But nothing to get fired up about now with these daggone Jets, you know. I don't know, guys. You know,
yeah, I'm still not sold on that Mike Mayock roster. I think they hit gold with Waller, but you know, like, I don't know. I don't love that roster.
And speaking of Waller, because Waller's the tight end, what's going on with our tight ends? We thought that this season, like, that was going to be at least a strong group out of our weapons.
I think I texted it during the game that, like, can there be a moment where I don't feel like disappointed in Herndon? And like the announcers even sounded like they were disappointed in Herndon. And let me take this opportunity to tell you both how much I hate Joe Buck. Joe Buck is terrible. Like seriously, baseball, stick with it. Don't even, like, this dude Hennessy got run into by the guy Jones on Denver. Like, the long snappers have not allowed to be, you're not allowed to touch a long snapper from the beginning of football. You know, like, that goes back to you know, Rutgers playing Princeton in the 1800s. And this guy doesn't know the rule. He has to ask Mike Pereira to clarify things for him.
Aikman didn't say anything either. Like, you know,
Mike Pereira was like, "Yeah, dude. I mean, he ran into the long snapper.
Right, you can't touch that guy.
Penalty.
Right,
it's a penalty." Sure. And then he gets into this whole thing about, like, the Jets kicked Robbie Anderson out of their, like, you know, like, they kicked him to the curb. He was a free agent. They offered him a contract. He decided to take a different contract. That's not on the Jets.
Well, I mean, you know, let's not got push back on that one, though. Robbie Anderson was hanging out there for a while, and we all on this broadcast thought that, you know what, we're going to be able to re-sign this guy, and he
Not
ended up.
me.
I thought so because he was still out there as a free agent. He ends up getting a 2-year deal for $20 million. Now, granted, we didn't know what deal the Jets had out there, but what I would say is that based on Joe Douglas and how he approached free agency, he was going to give you the price he thought you were worth. And what that ended up meaning is that we didn't go after the high-priced offensive lineman. It's, now we're paying for it. And maybe that was the same thing with the wide receiver. Cornerback, it definitely didn't help us. You mentioned Logan Ryan and some other folks that were out there as well. Byron Jones, right? We could have signed those guys and paid them big money. We didn't. And now what's happening? $6.5 million is thrown into the dumpster fire because we can't cover anybody. So listen, you could pay people less money, but you're going to get less production out of it. And that's what happens this year. And I don't know if we want to transition into the third segment talking about Joe Douglas and does he have some blame here? But I think he does at the end of the day.
So do I. I think Joe Douglas has some blame here. And, you guys are just talking about the cornerbacks, and, you guys are spot on. And for me, I think that also he didn't address the pass rushers, the edge rushers. So people like my man Q, Quentin Williams can develop coming up the middle, because out of all of the people that are rushing the passer, they're going to look at the people who they feel like pose the biggest threat. And right now on the defensive line, it is Quentin Williams. So he gets double teamed a lot. So if you watch him, he gets doubled a lot. But if you have people coming off the edges, and you're going to have to develop schemes to basically block particular people that you think pose a threat. And that just gives more leverage to the defensive line to just be more creative or what have you, and the defense all around. And the Jets don't have that. So they have to just be physical and defeat their man each and every single time because, no one else is scaring them on that front. So Anderson isn't doing anything. We got him a few years ago. Terrell Basham, he's really not doing much. These outside linebackers, people don't even know their names. They're not doing much. Just no one's really doing much. We don't have it. So.
I like Bryce Huff. I thought Bryce Huff played a pretty good game, and I was actually looking for Bryce Huff to see and evaluate him as a bit of a pass rusher and everything like that. He was undrafted, so that might be a little bit of a bright spot. He had, I think, 2 tackles for loss.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he tipped the ball too. Our boy Al, he's real tweaked with my Joe Buck comment. He thinks that
Joe Buck is terrible. As a matter of fact,
ever.
let me just carry on just with the whole Joe Buck thing because I did want to say something. I've never liked Joe Buck. Joe Buck is terrible.
Sheesh.
And also, my man, my former teammate Phil Atoshin. Love you, Phil. But he and I had a disagreement through text. He's my old Hofstra teammate, and he's also one of the hosts on Bear Barroom. So if you guys know and love the Chicago Bears, feel free to go to Bears Barroom. And of course, if you guys are Jets fans and want info on the Jets, you guys come to the BKBK podcast. You know that already.
That's right.
But Phil was, really tearing into my man Jonathan Vilma because Vilma was covering a Chicago Bears game. And he was ripping him to shreds, kind of like how Kyle was ripping Joe Buck. And I was like, no way. Because remember, we even spoke about how good a job Vilma did 2 weeks ago when he was covering our game. And plus, I got a soft spot for Vilma. Why? Because I remember during the Herm Edwards era, I believe it was Herm Edwards or was it Mangini, we drafted him with the 12th pick. And he was a heck of a linebacker for us until he got traded to New Orleans. Made a couple Pro Bowls with us as well, and was a heck of a linebacker out of my end.
I gotta say too, like us not having like a hometown college team, like that was like maybe Syracuse or Rutgers is the closest to us having a hometown team. I always liked the U. So like all those linebackers that played at the U, like Vilma, and Ray Lewis, and Jesse Armstead, and all those guys.
Beast.
Love watching them play.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, just getting back to Joe Douglas and he has the fingerprints on this roster right now. And I think going back to the Knicks, you know what? We're not going to spend a lot of money in free agency. We're going to get a bunch of 1-year contract guys, and then we're going to wait for the big payday for somebody that's going to walk Giannis or something like that. We're going to trade for. We're going to get all these assets together, and we're going to do that. Not exactly the same blueprint, but you have a good player, and he's available, and you could pay him a fair price. Why are we waiting until whatever year? I just don't understand it at this point. Why can't we piece together young talent that we can pay for? And I get it. We want to pay Darnold at some point potentially, and we want to pay, whoever else. We don't have anybody else on our roster to pay. And we don't even know if we're paying Darnold at this point. Right? So I mean, we couldn't have pieced together maybe 2 other good players, or at this point, you know what? The roster, not that good. There's nobody else that's out there that we could have picked up, or can we trade for? I mean, and this is one thing. DeAndre Hopkins, right? We couldn't have traded for that guy. What did we give up? What did they give up?
Second rounder.
And David Johnson.
Right.
Yep.
A bag of donuts.
David Johnson's an asset.
He's not really. Does he look like an asset out there right now?
No,
they're 0-4. They're 0-3.
He was coming off an injury, but he was like your top fantasy player 3 years ago.
I mean, we have a running back that's comparable to David Johnson. You're not going to tell me that Le'Veon Bell is any less than what David Johnson has been over the last couple of years.
He was comparable to David Johnson when they made that trade. Le'Veon Bell coming off his worst year ever.
And David Johnson coming off of what? He didn't even start at the end of the season. He didn't start.
That's because he's injury prone.
Well, I mean, he was playing. He still was playing. It wasn't injured, and Drake took his spot. He wasn't playing.
I don't think I want to go down the weeds on that, right? Into the weeds on that right now.
He had a great first game of the season, though. I'll tell you that much.
All I'm saying is Kyler Murray right now is feeling pretty good, and Sam Darnold is not. And I'd give up a second-round pick every day of the week. If it was a second round, was it a second round, David?
It was a second round.
Second round, okay.
Yeah.
I'd give up Le'Veon Bell and a second-round pick in order to have DeAndre Hopkins in my locker room. And we'd feel a little bit better about being able to evaluate Sam Darnold at this point in time. And I'd give Hopkins a contract.
You're also not taking into account that David Johnson's contract and Le'Veon Bell's contract are not the same.
Okay. Well, I'd give him a second and a
Because
third.
I agree with you. I would make that trade too.
Well,
but I don't think the Cardinals would make that trade because they're taking on salary that much more salary with Le'Veon Bell than they are, with.
No. You're talking about Houston wouldn't make the trade. Not Arizona.
I'm sorry, Houston. Especially because either way, I think that you're right though with the Knicks comparison too, because I don't think people want to come to be free agents at the Jets. Who was the tackle that Brandon loved from
Conklin,
Tennessee? I think that they probably offered Conklin more money than anybody else did. I think that they probably offered Robbie Anderson more money than Carolina did. I think he made a decision. I don't know. I don't know how I'd ever find out if that's true or not.
Right.
Especially not from Robbie Anderson's tweets. But I don't think that. I think that's the case. I think that people are not. They don't want to sign with the Knicks. That's why Julius Randle was their biggest signing last year, and they don't want to sign with the Jets. And I don't know, maybe a Lincoln Riley, like you said, maybe that brings somebody there. Maybe that excites the free agent class. I don't know.
So,
what I've been hearing as well is that another reason why Douglas may be kind of scrimping somewhat is because the NFL knows and teams know in the NFL that the salary cap is actually going to go down a little bit. most probably because of this COVID pandemic thing. So usually it goes up every year. I think this year it's going to go down. So I think he wanted to kind of scrimp and save a little bit and see the number that it's going to land at before he starts making these big free agent splashes. Now, I could be wrong, but I have been hearing that. So, you know, we'll see. Because I'm just like, how come we haven't even gotten a pass rusher? How come we haven't gotten a cornerback? And we have, like, you know, as far as you know, cap room, like we're in the top 5 in all of the NFL as far as having cap room. So, you know, I don't know, you know, so I think as far as evaluating Darnold, we're doing that. Evaluating Coach Gase, we've already done that. He's got to go. But I think this upcoming year right now will be the really strict evaluation of Joe Douglas.
And I'm going to make one other point. COVID-19 was the middle of March, but we didn't really know what the impact was going to be. Probably, May? You know, maybe June. NFL free agency, legal tampering period started March 16th. So he didn't know at that point in time where we were spending that free agent money at that point. Now today, of course, makes perfect sense. But at March 16th, he didn't know that, hey, COVID-19, salary cap, all these things that you're bringing up, he didn't know that on March 16th. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think they knew there'd be a season at all.
Not on March 16th, though, Kyle. I mean, I'm just saying, date-wise, March 16th, you're talking about we didn't know what COVID-19 was going to be in the right now.
Okay. Now I get what you're saying. March 16th, yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The free agency started legal tampering March 16th. Nobody knew about COVID-19 or the impact on March 16th. He already had a plan as far as how much money he was going to pay free agents and all of that. He had no idea about the salary cap and the impact and all of that when he started spending, or lack thereof, the free agent money.
Shoot, by March 16th, I had done 175 different scenarioed things as a general manager. And I signed Robbie Anderson every time at 10 million or less per year, if you remember. But the 0-4 for September for 2 years in a row, and this year being even worse because the schedule and the last game against the worst team in the league. And we had this conversation too, like Denver on Thursday night was worse than Cincinnati was last year at Ophir, and we lost to them. And so that was a bad loss.
And that was part of that 6-2 that we're touting. That was part of that 6-2 that we're touting. Then we lost the Bengals. It gave them their first win.
Yeah, well, we did beat those Cowboys, though. How about them Cowboys? We beat them.
Wow.
Yeah, but I just think that again, I'll be like Troy Aikman. I'm no Gase apologist, but at this point, I don't see anybody with any common sense saying to yourself, you see, all of a sudden getting through this rough water with Adam Gase and it being a successful marriage going forward. It's right now it's a lame duck scenario, and we'll get and the Johnsons will take it to the end of the season, and they'll cut ties with him. They'll figure out something, and I think it would be great if it's Eric Bieniemy. But
I see
Eric Bieniemy has to want
talking
that.
to his players. You know, I don't even see Adam Gase talking to his players. He's like this all the time. This is all I see. And then every now and again, you might see him give the quarterback a note. But what about everybody else? He's not a personable type of dude. Like, I can't. That bothers me.
Yeah,
man.
he tweaks really me too. I'm not gonna lie, he tweaks me.
Yeah, he tweaks me out. For real, seriously. Like, Adam Gase, don't say anything about my mother.
We were just piecing together some really rose-colored glasses type podcasts here, where the where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. No, it's just totally negative. And I hope that I was really hoping that this week we would get some sort of like at least like false happiness. Hey, we won a game. Hey, Sam Darnold played pretty good. Hey, Jameson Crowder came back. Hey, we stopped somebody on defense. None of that.
Hey, Kyle, I didn't know you had those tats on you. Look at that.
The grass is green and girls are pretty was a Guns N' Roses lyric, by the way.
Looks like you got some Guns N' Roses tattoos on you. I didn't see that. Check that out.
On your guns.
On your guns. Yeah. All right. Listen, man. Listen. We've beaten this horse to death. I think we had a great show. We're gonna wrap this bad boy up. We're gonna have something for you guys, our audience, our viewing audience next week. Who do we play? Oh, we're playing Kyler Murray, aren't we?
Yeah, we're playing exactly what I want to happen. We're gonna draft another quarterback number 1 and trade the other guy.
I guarantee you Kyler Murray is gonna set some kind of record on us. Some kind of record. It's either a personal record or it's gonna be a franchise record.
500 yards. Is that the prediction? 500 combined yards. Is that what we're predicting?
Yeah, or maybe like 6 rushing touchdowns. He's gonna dip on somebody, like ha, like hard.
They're so stacked at receiver. Their receiver room is unbelievable.
Oh my goodness. Anyway,
and their young guys, their young guys are starting to come on now, like Andy Isabella.
Yep.
And yeah.
I haven't heard much from Christian Kirk, but I always like Christian Kirk coming out of Texas.
He's a little hurt. Christian Kirk is a little hurt.
But yeah, they still got Larry.
Yeah.
Larry's like the Frank Gore of receivers right
now. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So.
Anyway, hey guys, thanks for watching another episode of the BKBK podcast. We want to be able to keep bringing you the latest news and viewpoints of where sports and the culture collide and the New York Jets reign supreme. So keep watching. You can find us on Facebook on our BKBK podcast fan page. Find us on Twitter at BKBK podcast, Instagram at BKBK podcast, as well as on YouTube. So when you go to YouTube, just type in BKBK podcast, hit the like and the subscribe button, and please share it all over the place. All right. If you can't watch us and you just want to listen to us, say in the car or whatever, you can go to bkbkpodcast.podomatic.com. All righty, and check us out on iTunes. All right, folks, that's it. Let's go Jets. Let's go Baldwin Bruins. We're going to chat, about you guys up in the future. And let's go Team BKBK, all right? So, it was one of those episodes where we kind of beat the Jets up, but deservedly so. Listen, I'm still repping. It's all good, It's not all that good, but, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? But we're going to give you the info regardless and broadcast about it, So positive or negative. All right, let's go Team BKBK. Here we go.
You.
See you soon, Kerry.
Yeah, Kerry. Love you, man. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Al, for chiming in. Eddie Howler.
Out Al Knight. Philatosian.
Ed Howard. Ball and Cycle BMX. Forever.